Jordan Clarkson opts in. Kelly Olynyk's options picked up. Jazz need both of them desperately, but there's no question there's a logjam at each position now. What do the Jazz do about it? Plus opening day of free agency. It's all coming up on today's edition of Locked on Jazz.
You are Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How are you? I am David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider, and this is Locked on Jazz. Today, Jordan Clarkson opts in. The man is back. What does it mean for the Jazz? Why would Jordan do this? The logjam it creates. He's not coming off the bench. Now what for Clarkson? The multiple options and the bottom line for the Jazz. Kelly Olynyk. Why would the Jazz, having picked up John Collins, drafted Taylor Hendricks, take Kelly Olynyk back in? We'll break down that. Plus, another logjam. And what do they do about it? Free agent expectations as it all starts at 4 o'clock today. Mountain time. We'll see what takes place and whether the Jazz are a player and what their positioning is in free agency right now. That's all coming up on today's edition of Locked on Jazz, a Friday edition. I am, as I mentioned, David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz and Jazz NBA insider. This is your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz called Locked on Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for making Locked on Jazz your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all podcasting apps. We're also on YouTube, where my good friend Leaf Tulane has done a wonderful job of promoting great conversation and discussion, and hopefully we can build off that as well. So thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks for making Locked on Jazz your everyday occurrence. Big shout out to the everydayers and to Leaf. Great work. So I will be with you, by the way, here's the plan. I'm going to be with you until about the 8th or 9th of July, and then Leaf takes over again. And then I'll be back with you about July, about Pioneer Day. So he's done a great job, and his guests have been great. Andy Larson, Tony Jones, good to have. So appreciate it very much. All right, let's get into it. Jordan Clarkson opts in. This is big for the Jazz because, frankly, you need talent. Like, you need Jordan Clarkson opting in for the Utah Jazz because you need talent. And Jordan Clarkson's good. And let's first discuss, why would Jordan do this? So I think there's a real chance the market could have really dried up on Jordan. The opening acts of the market have been Oklahoma City taking money for Davis Bertans, the Jazz taking on John Collins money, and a lot of money has disappeared. Houston's got $66 million of cap space. San Antonio's got $42 million of cap space. Indiana's got 32. Detroit's got 31. Orlando's got 22. Oklahoma City's got 19. And Sacramento's got 18. None of those are contenders. So if you're Jordan and you really want to get to a contender, let's say that was your number one goal. You're 31 years old and you want to get to the contender, or your number one goal was you're 31 years old and you want to get to a large market. None of those fit, right? So Houston's got Jalen Green and they don't fit roster-wise. San Antonio's maybe the spot where he would have wanted to go because he has a house there. It's where he grew up. But obviously they read the market and San Antonio wasn't pulling for Jordan Clarkson. We'll see what Indiana does in what I think they're going to be a major player today. And we see, what takes place with that. But unless you want to go to Detroit, like, there just wasn't really a landing spot for Jordan out there. And I think his market could have gotten really dry really fast. So the first thing is, if Jordan's goals were to get to a large market, or Jordan's goals were to get to a contender, opting in and being traded is actually a better way for him to get there. Okay? So I think that actually could be a part of this. And frankly, in the last two offseasons, or last offseason, last two trade deadlines, last one trade deadline, one offseason, the Jazz have floated. Jordan's been available to a contender probably, considering the Jazz circumstances, and no one's bit. So Jordan's game is unique, works great for the Jazz, but I'm not always sure that a really good team quite has a spot for Jordan to be Jordan. And so I'm not sure that market is so robust for him. For the Jazz, this is great. because Jordan's good. And the fact of the matter is, we have a bunch of nice players we really like. We don't have any bucket getters. We also don't have a lot of guys who can put it on the deck and just beat somebody to create offense. A lot of NBA offense is somebody simply beating someone into the lane and dishing and then getting it rolling. The blender. Colin Sexton can do it. He's not a great guy to dish it out at that point. Jordan Clarkson is got a unique ability that the Jazz need. He makes plays. It's, you know what? They really, if we're going to try to be good, as it seems to be with the John Collins move, and you're not trying to tank and hold your top 10 pick, you need guys like Jordan Clarkson who are good. Jordan Clarkson makes you better. And you look at it, okay, John Collins is nice. He doesn't create his own shots. Walker Kessler cannot create his own shots. Ochai Agbaji really can't create his own shots. Colin Sexton can bring the defense to him. Passing and reading's not his strength. Taylor Horton-Tucker can do it, but his passing and reading's not always his strength. Jordan has shown that ability. Kelly Olynyk, we'll get to in a second, great passer, can't create it. So the skill set that Jordan Clarkson has is needed. Now, there's no question this creates a logjam. And there is a legitimate question that I have had all year long about Jordan, which is, if you want Ochai Agbaji to play 30 minutes a night, I don't know how Jordan Clarkson fits on the Utah Jazz. Because Jordan Clarkson's going to start. Jordan Clarkson, 6th man of the year, great at it. In my guess, I have not talked to Jordan about this. I'm just guessing, a 31-year-old veteran. All good with it. He's at the peak of his game right now. He's all good with the idea that he's coming off the bench. If he's coming off the bench behind Donovan Mitchell, I don't think Jordan Clarkson's going to be up for coming off the bench behind Ochai Agbaji. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'd be really surprised. So Jordan's going to start. And Jordan's going to play 28 minutes a night. And so if Ochai Agbaji is getting himself 30 minutes a night, which might be too much, maybe it's 25, he's going to do about 15 of them as a backup 2 and about 10 of them as the backup 3. And that's how you're going to get him his minutes. But you still have a logjam. You have Sexton. You have THT. You've got Chris Dunn, if he's non-guaranteed. You've got Keontae George, and you got Bryce Sensabaugh. We have a logjam of players. We have a lot of players right now that the rookies we don't know. We hope they're good. But we have a lot of other guys who've proven that they're viable NBA players. This goes back to last year when we were better than everyone expected. It was because when the year started, we had 240 rotation minutes. We had 228 Rudy Gays were not rotation minutes of NBA players playing. And you add to that logjam, I think we still need a point guard. I still think we need a point guard. And this is an interesting debate. Tony Jones, in his article in The Athletic, mentions that Will Hardy and the Jazz, Justin Zanuck, no longer believe that you need to have a traditional point guard in the NBA. I'm a little surprised by this. Traditional, like 6'1", small little point guard? No, I don't think so. Combo guards, yes. But you really need, I think, someone who's organizing, putting together, calming. We watched our late game. Once Mike Conley left, our late game play struggled so badly offensively. When crisis hit, we didn't react great without Mike Conley. So I do think you need some sort of calming, organizing, collective force on the floor as your team. Now, is that a traditional point guard? 6'1" small? No. But something there. And I think there's an interesting point guard out there that's going to have a bad day market-wise today. And I wonder whether the Jazz should look into him. We'll talk about that as we talk about what's upcoming in free agency as well. So now what for Jordan Clarkson? The Jazz can extend him. And this is unique. If the Jazz don't use any of their cap space and they don't sign anyone else, they can actually take the remaining cap space, put it on top of Jordan's contract this year. So he goes from whatever it is, it'll be plus 14 million or so, 13 million. So he gets to be a big number. And then you can decline him in a 2-year extension. So you're signing him to a 3-year deal. He declines, makes it a more tradable asset, and you take his 3-year number, it probably gets to be the number Jordan thinks his market value is. So that's a possibility. The second is Jordan opted in. He just takes the year. He's a tradable asset at the trade deadline. He goes to free agency and sees what the market says a year from now, hopefully with everything settled on this second apron, minimum salary, and all the stuff that's going on this year. It's crazy. And the third one is that, frankly, you could do the extension, or this is all a setup, because what I started with, his goal is to play for a contender, or his goal is to play for a larger market. And the way to get him there was for him to pick up his option, because there's no way for him to get there in free agency. The bottom line is the Jazz are a better basketball team with Jordan Clarkson. The Jazz need Jordan Clarkson, and they need his skill set. And there's no question it creates a logjam. No question. And that has to be addressed at some point. The fact that Jordan's timeline at 31 might not match the Jazz timeline of 2030. There's no question. Kelly Olynyk. The Jazz picked up his option after acquiring Taylor Hendricks with the 9th pick and after trading for John Collins. Why? And what does it mean for the Jazz? It's similar to Jordan Clarkson. We'll touch on that as we continue. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Murdoch Hyundai, located at 4646 South State Street, also located in Logan and in Linden. Murdoch's been with Utah for probably close to 90 years now. It was 80 years when they started advertising with us. It's now close to 90. The no regrets Murdoch experience. That's the signature of who the Murdochs are. They want you to have this amazing experience, customer service. It goes back to the pandemic when everyone was charging more for their cars, and Blake's like, we're not doing it. I'm not going to church. I'm not going to the grocery store. I'm not going to places where I gouge someone for an extra $1,000 or $3,000 or $5,000. We're not doing it because we're a part of the community, and that's who the Murdochs are. And the Hyundai's amazing. I've got the Ioniq 5. I've got 2 Santa Cruzes. We rented a Santa Cruz this week when we were in St. Louis. Absolutely fabulous car. All the bells, all the whistles for the best dollar price. Make sure if you're looking for a car right now, you look at a Hyundai and then you decide whether you like the look and the feel and you want to be driving that car. The Ioniq 6 is unreal. Go check it out. Email me first at dlock09@gmail.com. We'll give you that VIP experience. That's dlock09 to give you that VIP experience. Today's show is also brought to you by Game Time. I helped this guy out the other day with my daughter was at a golf tournament in St. Louis, and we were walking the golf course. And he's like, I'm going to go to the Astros Cardinals game. He got a great game. And I was like, oh, well, hey, here's this app. Download this app, Game Time. It's amazing. And with the promo code Locked On NBA, you can get $20 off your first purchase. Dude's like, thanks, that's awesome. So here's the deal, Game Time. And the reason I told him use the Game Time app is because you get exclusive flash deals on tickets. You get the Game Time guarantees, which means if your tickets are in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And you get pictures of your seats, so you get images so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. And you buy tickets in a matter of seconds, 2 taps and you're set. And the tickets are sent directly to your phone so that you never have to dig through email. That's why I told the guy we were walking the fairway and he's taking his daughter to the Cardinals Astros game that night. And to use Game Time, we were on the 15th fairway at the time. By the 16th fairway, he had 2 tickets and Game Time had delivered. Go to Game Time, download the app and create an account. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNBA for over $20 to get $20 off on your first purchase with Game Time. Thanks very much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. I'm super appreciative, and very big thank you to Leaf to Lean as well. So the Jazz pick up the option on Kelly Olynyk, and he'll return for this season. So the Jazz lose more potential cap space, and they add Kelly Olynyk when they've already got John Collins, Walker Kessler, Lauri Markkanen. Why? Because you need Kelly Olynyk. Same situation a little bit as Jordan Clarkson. Like the skill set, if you're going to win games, you need Kelly Olynyk. He's a ball mover. He's a glue. He's an amazing guy in the locker room. He's this chill, hat on backwards, wild competitor. He's a necessity for how to be a pro and what it is to be a pro and the mood you want in the locker room and how you're, and he can really play. He can really play. He's really versatile, really willing to put his role in. I think him not starting, if John Collins starts in front of him, is going to be disappointing for Kelly. Kelly really enjoyed last season playing. These guys love to play. He's not going to be a problem about it, but I just want to say, like, he started last year, played great, probably is asking himself, like, wait a sec, I averaged 13, 6, and 4 last year in 68 starts. Why does John Collins immediately come in and get my spot? And maybe John Collins doesn't. But that was 68 starts last year, which is the most he's had in any season. Previous high was 62 the year he bounced between Miami and Houston. And previous to that was 36. So Kelly loved starting last year and loved being that major a part of it. So this is going to be a little bit of a dance for Will Hardy on John Collins and Kelly Olynyk. Because John Collins played 30 minutes a night last year, despite that. And John Collins has come off the bench for a grand total of 3 games in the last 5 years. So his expectation is he's going to start. Not saying either of these guys will be problematic, but that this is you've got a talented big roster, and this is going to be a little bit of a dance. Kelly, so you have Walker's going to play center. I think Lowry is really our backup center. That's the way I would look at it. So Walker's going to play 30, and Kelly's going to play 8, or Lowry's going to play 18. Maybe Walker's going to play 32. And Lowry's going to play 16 as your backup center, and he's going to play 20 as your starting 3, which then is going to allow some of these other guys, Ochai Agbaji, to get minutes at the 3, and Olynyk plays the 4 with Collins for 48, and then maybe someone slides, and you can get some minutes in there with somebody playing a center to try to get, both those guys are going to want 25, 26, 28 minutes a night. You're going to have to figure that one out. John and Kelly on the floor together to me would be funky, but frankly, Will Hardy had funky combinations on the floor all year last year. This is a sign, though, of how different the Jazz are as a basketball team than when we had conversations about 26, 36, or 46, and I talked about 26, it's because I anticipated, as this roster would be, that we would end up with Keontae George, Ochai Agbaji, Lauri Markkanen, Taylor Hendricks, and Walker Kessler as our primary lineup by the 41st game of the season. And that lineup might be the right thing for the franchise, but wouldn't win any games. This grouping, when you have Walker Kessler, Kelly Olynyk, John Collins, and Lauri Markkanen, who all can play center, and preferably in my mind, it's Walker Kessler, Lauri Markkanen. I don't think Kelly Olynyk or John Collins are particularly good centers. You have power forwards that are John Collins, Kelly Olynyk, and Taylor Hendricks. You've got a 3 that's Lauri Markkanen with Ochai Agbaji sliding down to help out with the logjam of the guards. And you've got pretty interesting grouping of players. Fontecchio, I think, gets out of the rotation at this point. That would be my guess. We'll see. Maybe year 2 international players are much more comfortable and much more adapt, and they're just not going through all the life changes that they went through. And so maybe he'll be able to step forward into that spot. On the guard line, I assume that Keontae George and Bryce Sensabaugh are out of the rotation to start, and that it's, as of it sits right now, it's some sort of a Chris Dunn, Colin Sexton guard line with Jordan Clarkson and Talen Horton-Tucker kind of as your 2s, or maybe Talen Horton-Tucker's Chris Dunn are your points, and Sexton and Clarkson. And then you're probably playing some sort of lineups at some point where you're playing 3 of those and one of them sliding down to the small forward. You've just got legitimate minutes of guys there. This is why you have the logjam. But again, this is pretty great that these 2 guys in Jordan Clarkson and Kelly Olynyk make you better, and they both have skills. The Jazz don't have passers. This is where we started the year last year. The Jazz simply don't have passers. And the passer on the Jazz and the facilitator and the glue And the thread that held the fabric together last year were two guys, Mike Conley and Kelly Olynyk. Well, we don't have Mike Conley. We have Kelly Olynyk. So Kelly Olynyk's vital. I mean, it's also where Kelly Olynyk could start over John Collins, and John Collins comes off the bench with Colin Sexton in some sort of a smaller lineup, and maybe then John's playing the 5 where he's at his best offensively, but not at his best defensively. So a lot of different options here for the Utah Jazz, and we haven't even headed into any type of free agency yet or more trades. The other thing that has happened here, and it's kind of an awkward conversation to have about guys, but the Jazz have done one other thing here, which is they went from when we were during the trade deadline, and we would talk about whether or not you make a trade for the 2 or 3 or 4 pick with Charlotte and those guys. And if Charlotte and Portland were to make those trades, it was going to be because they wanted to compete now. We didn't have any contracts on our roster other than Colin Sexton that you could move to go get another player. We had incredible draft assets, but we didn't have contracts. Okay, we now have John Collins at 25, Colin Sexton at 17 million, Jordan Clarkson at 14 million, Kelly Olynyk at 12 million, Taylor Horton-Tucker at 11 million. All pieces that you can put together with those assets that we got in the trades to be able to put together a deal. And you've got Simone at 3 if you need to add something, and Damian Jones at 2.5 if you need to add something. And I think Damian Jones can actually play. So he could be your backup. And, non-guaranteed contracts of Chris Dunn, Luka Samanic, and Vernon Carey that if you need to, you can clear another $6 or $7 million of cap space to make a move. What to expect in free agency, and a player who I think will have a bad market today, and is he someone the Utah Jazz should go get? That coming up on today's edition of Locked on Jazz. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. How to make the game fun with Prize Picks. Download the app now or go to prizepicks.com. If you use the promo code Locked On, Prize Picks is giving you the bonus. That's right. Prize Picks gives you the Locked On $100 deposit match with the promo code Locked On. Download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com. Sign up. Play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. If you deposit 100, Prize Picks gives you 100. If you deposit 50, Prize Picks gives you 50. But what is Prize Picks? It is daily fantasy. You pick 2 to 6 players. They score more or less or do less or more than you want. You win up to 25 times your money. Any sport imaginable: NBA, WNBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA. Golf's super fun on Prize Picks. Get it all done at prizepicks.com. Prize Picks. Get your entries in. Player projections, more or less, simple and fun. Download the app, put the promo code in, Locked On. You can make entries in 60 seconds or less, safe and fast. Easy withdrawals. You get $100 deposit match with the promo code Locked On. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen. Shout out to the Everydayers. Sure, great to be back with you. So what should we expect from the Utah Jazz in free agency? So as we mentioned earlier, the Jazz have about $14 million at the max. Maybe. Houston's got the most at 66. San Antonio's got 42. Indiana's got 32. Detroit's got 31. Orlando's got 22. Oklahoma City's got 19. And Sacramento's got 18. As I mentioned, the Jazz can use that money to give Jordan an extension. The Jazz can also use that money in trades to take in players. There might be somebody who needs another player that could become available. And the Jazz can play around by being under the cap to get some more freedom to do trades. They're over the 90% right now, which is an important thing. I still think the Jazz need a primary ball handler. Here's my best guess on how opening day of NBA free agency goes down today, and I will likely go live around 4 o'clock so we can do it together. So Harden gets traded, likely it sounds like to the Clippers, and the earlier it gets done, it's a much easier trade. If they don't get it done today, it starts to get more difficult with matching. If they don't get it done, it almost gets impossible if it's not done today. It gets really, really hard. So Harden gets dealt. Somebody spends big money on Van Vliet, more than they probably should. Somebody spends big money on Jeremy Grant. somebody spends a decent amount on Kyle Kuzma, and on Monday, we look at the John Collins deal by the Jazz, and it's way better because the Jazz first, according to reports from Mark Stein, were after Kristaps Porzingis. Then they were after John Collins. So clearly this was the kind of position they wanted, a Jeremy Grant type. Jeremy Grant could get $30 million a year. Kyle Kuzma could go get 25, 20. Remember, the mid-level exception's high now. It's like 15, 16. Like 20 is kind of a baseline salary now. So Kuz gets 28, 29. Grant gets 30. John Collins' deal looks way better as of Monday. So those main guys are going to go. And then I think this thing dries up in a hurry. The second apron is real. There isn't a huge amount of great talent out here. Flexibility of trades, I think, is going to be even more important going forward. And it feels like this is a settling market where everyone just kind of wants to see what's happening. So if you aren't a player who fully moves the meter, I think it's going to get ugly. It's why Gary Trent Jr., Taylor Horton Tucker, Jordan Clarkson, and all these guys opted in. I mean, there were a ton of opt-ins. Houston's obviously got to do something. Harrison Barnes ends up signing an extension instead of going all the way out there in Sacramento as well. And so Sacramento ends up being a little less of a player. Something's going to happen with Draymond. I guess as he stays in Golden State, but who knows? The player that I think has a tough day today is DAngelo Russell. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Jazz weren't able to offer DAngelo Russell or even maybe a sign and trade of a 1-year deal. Their cap space would be 14. You move one or two players, it's up. You get the deal bigger than that. Let him go back in the market. He's 27 years old. And I think the Jazz could I think that DAngelo Russell could possibly. Now, DAngelo Russell, Minnesota wanted off of DAngelo Russell so badly. DAngelo Russell was a pseudo all-star in Brooklyn, averaging 23 points a game. He lasted kind of 33 games in Golden State before they moved him. He's kind of a funky player who comes with mixed reviews, who can score an average of 18 points a game in his career, is a 36% three-point shooter, shot lights out this year. I think he was at 41% with the Lakers and 39% with Minnesota, who's got a good mid-range game, who's a nice pick-and-roll player, who's 6'4". I don't think he's got a market. I could be totally wrong, but just playing through it, there's not a lot of market. The only other, if you believe the Jazz need a point guard, and again, this gets into the question is, do the Jazz need a traditional point guard in Will Hardy's system? And I'm not sure DAngelo Russell is that traditional guard. He's not particularly, he's not a rim attacker. He's a facilitator, good pick and roll runner, player, doesn't get on the cup, plays in the mid-range, not particularly athletic, not particularly but he's not bad either, right? He averages 20. Effective field goal percentage last year was 57%. Super clutch player too. Late game need a bucket. Pretty good. He and Lowry running a two-man game, we're forcing some switching, be pretty tidy. The other next free agent is Trey Jones, who's restricted out of San Antonio. And unless San Antonio gets into some other game where they're matching and waiting restricted, I would assume they're just going to match anything we can do on him. And then from there, if you think we need a point guard, you're into Monte Morris trade with Washington. Or you're back to the guy I've talked about all year long, which is Jalen Suggs. And Jalen Suggs is a huge gamble. He is truly, I'm in on it. It's a gamble I would totally take. But it is truly one of the worst opening 2 years of shooting in an NBA career. Monte Morris is a $9.8 million contract that's extendable. And so you just, would you rather have, quite frankly, would you rather have Monte Morris or Taylor Horton Tucker? There's an argument. I love Taylor. It's my favorite guy in the locker room, so I don't like this conversation. But there's an argument that Monte Morris sets up a team, runs a team, and you actually need that. But if the Jazz don't believe you need that, then you don't. So would you, if the market dries up on DAngelo Russell, be willing to play that game. Lakers evidently are not interested in re-signing DAngelo Russell. He's a mercurial guy. Like, grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, number one recruit, and then went to, like, kind of shunned them all and went to Ohio State. It's kind of like, you know, Kentucky and Louisville are all over him. He's like, I'm out. It's just a different, like, you know, number 2 pick of the 2015 draft. But when I'm looking at, let's go back to the teams with cap space, I don't see Houston doing that. I don't think San Antonio's playing that game. Indiana's got Tyrese Halliburton. Detroit's got Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham. Orlando's got 73 guards. Oklahoma City has Shea and just drafted Cason Wallace. Sacramento has De'Aaron Fox and Davion Mitchell and their crew. I don't see an offer for DAngelo Russell that is more than the NBA mid-level exception. And in the NBA mid-level exception, the Jazz can beat that. Okay? So we'll have, you know, that one's interesting to me. If we're really trying to win, I think the mid-level is like 12.4, and we can beat that. I believe if the Jazz release Dunn, Samanic, Vernon Carey, you're there. Plus, if I understand the rules right, you could do a sign and trade with the Lakers on DAngelo Russell. So, just a name. Like, when I went down the free agents, that's the one who, if you look at John Hollinger's board rating system of what he believes a player's worth, he has DAngelo Russell at $26 million. He's not getting $26 million. So DAngelo Russell's an interesting guy with a bunch of stuff to him, who I think will be the best value player on the market here at 5 o'clock tonight. And as I said, I think the John Collins deal will look way, way better after Jeremy Grant signs for 30 and Kyle Kuzma signs for 27 today. Kuzma, that might be high on Kuz, but we'll see. There are not a lot of small forwards out there. Power forward, small forwards, combo kind of things like that. That 3-4 player, there just aren't a lot on the market right now. All right, that is Locked On Jazz today. I'm planning on, I got a first day back, got to make sure everything goes right. But if everything goes right, I'm going to be live somewhere a little bit before 4 o'clock, before free agency. I don't think we're going to be doing a lot, but maybe we jump early on something. Maybe we've got a trade in the works. Maybe the Clarkson thing is this. So since there's a maybe, let's be live together at 4 o'clock today. Talk to you soon. Thanks so much for being you. Thanks for being a part of Locked On Jazz. Don't tell anyone, but I missed you. See ya.